So, first question, how did you first get interested in vintage garments?
Vintage garments, that goes back a very long way. I was at a very small primary school on Exmoor, and I think we had like 20 pupils in the school, and there was a local family called the Hambros, who I just thought were a local family. I guess they were a banking family, and there must have been a flapper amongst this family because in the 1960s, all these clothes were donated, which were probably from their 20s and 30s, which weren't actually that old then. And they were these amazing tea dresses and embroidered flapper dresses and so on. So we were sort of dragging around the playground in these priceless treasures, not really knowing. But I did definitely absorb the kind of look of a 1930s print, which is still to this day my favorite kind of print. Um, so yeah, my interest started then, but it kind of blossomed later in life when I became a textile designer.
Wow. Okay. Now, you work a lot, as well as vintage, you work a lot with digital design, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I've been. Sorry, were you going to ask me something more then? I just,
No, I was just going to ask you about the sustainability of your
yeah.
digital design
Well,
practices.
digital design used to be, well, we used to kind of, paint on paper, put it in a suitcase, fly off to New York or wherever, um, and knock on doors and phone people and sell our designs that way, or they'd come to shows or come to our studio in London. But there's a lot of traveling involved, and taxis and cars and so on. And then when we started using digital, we became much faster, so we produced more. So more of us were traveling, and we were very successful then. But it really isn't sustainable. I mean, it's crazy, and times have shown that we've all had to sort of rein ourselves in. But now that we have websites, we can sell online. So a lot of the designs we do, which are digital, are now kind of they don't actually exist in real life. We don't print them on silk anymore. We don't even print them on recycled polyester anymore. We just design them and show them online. Um, and clients buy online, not as much as they used to buy in real life, but we don't really need to sell as many because overheads are down. So
Okay,
yeah, everything's kind of smaller but better.
thank you.
Mm.
So, actually, my next question was, do you use any recycled fabrics?
Yeah, we when we do have to print, we print on recycled polyester. Um, but a lot of our actual prints are sort of recycled ideas, but maybe we can get into that later. I don't know. So yes, recycled polyester.
Right. And how has technology made your sales process less wasteful? I think you've covered it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have six sales guys flying around all over the world all the time. And you can imagine what that was like: hotels, taxis, flights, all that gas guzzling and stuff. It was not sustainable. It was crazy. And I always used to think, God, why do we have to do this? Why, so we've had websites and so on for years, but it's taken until COVID, um, to get people to really um, shop online for prints, which is really bizarre because all the fashion companies sell their product online. And we always used to say, quite early on, if it looks good online, it looks good online. If it looks good online, it's going to look good online. Um,
Oh,
and
true.
that's why kind of tiny little prints are not so popular because they don't look so great online. They just turn into a kind of fuzz, or they look like a plain fabric. So prints have got very graphic. But anyway,
Well,
that's
well, no. So actually, what you're saying is this focus on being more digital and working in the virtual world is actually affecting design and the end product for the consumer.
I think so, yeah. It's got to be visual. It's got to be visible online. So things are
Yeah.
very graphic. It's why people like Johanna Ortiz are so successful, I think, because their simple, large tropicals are sort of flat and bright and graphic. And yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, what kind of customers are buying for you? Is it all business to business or business to consumer?
It's not business to consumer, it's business to business. So I mean, if we people that visit our office, or if we go to Paris or something for a show, we sell to people like Etro, Cezanne, American Vintage, A lot of the French companies, Vanessa Bruno, people like that, but they love searching through all the kind of archive stuff. I've actually got some typical books here.
Oh,
All
wow.
these little old prints, they love sifting through these
Wow.
and things. And sometimes I'll do a design from them, or they'll
Wow.
just buy the print, But these are lovely old sort of historical documents, priceless
Wow.
for
Um,
sort of the recycling of ideas.
wow. I suppose if it's works once in the past, it'll work again. Is print design as well as fashion cyclical?
Yeah, it is cyclical, but I do believe that things that are vintage based have a longer life because, 1930s print, such as this one, which I did from a tiny little fragment,
Oh, wow.
um, would always look like a 1930s print. And okay, they might not be, they might look great now, they might look like vintage, they might look like sort of rehashed vintage, and they might look like vintage in 10 years' time. And if, I just think there's more life to a vintage print than there is to a sort of modern fashion inspired, catwalk inspired print that's just kind of pulled out of the air. I mean, there's some beautiful stuff out there, but I think the vintage has got a longer life and
Oh,
nice to
okay.
sort of recycle that historic craftsmanship and so on.
It's like protecting heritage in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, sort of, bringing the past into the future. I love it. Mm.
Now, you also sell vintage garments. How does that work in the fashion industry?
In a similar way. I mean, I've, with all my travels over the decades, I've been collecting, sort of stuff like vintage kimonos and, 70s dresses and so on, as inspiration for many, many young designers who've sort of passed through the design studio. And then I think about 20 years ago, vintage became a thing. And a lot of countries didn't like vintage because it was like old, horrible stuff, and other people loved it and they've moved on. And then some of these countries that didn't like it now like it. So I've been also selling my archive. So, it's been used as inspiration for trading designers. And then I've been, selling it on as well. And it will get absorbed, immersed into, a fashion company's collection.
Wow. Now, a
Hmm.
lot of people are saying that trade fairs are not sustainable, it's so wasteful. What do you think the future of trade fairs is and selling business to business?
Oh,
And
it's a difficult one because it used to be the best thing. Everybody would meet and schmooze, and you did a lot of business there, and you saw your competition and everything. But people just don't travel as much. Their budgets are cut down, and the shows, not so many people that exhibit at the shows, so they're not as appealing to go to. So not so many people travel to the show, and it's just they're getting smaller and smaller. Um, and what always makes me laugh is that they places like Premier Vision, they talk about sustainable fashion, and then you're standing on like 300 square kilometers of nylon carpet which will just be sort of ripped up the next day and sort of incinerated or something. I don't know, I don't really know what happens, but maybe it
yeah,
gets recycled, but it just doesn't feel right. You're sort of walking along with all this static and it's all covered in plastic before you reveal the lime green polyester carpet the next day. um, and we're all being as sustainable as possible, and we're surrounded by plastic. So yeah, the fashion industry's got a lot to learn. um, but sorry, what was your question again? What is the future of print shows or trade shows? I think they'll always be there because I think some people like to go and feel and touch and see,
yeah.
talk to people, which is very important. It can't all be done online, but
Uh,
so much of it is done online now because companies don't want to invest in travel and hotels and all that stuff. So
yeah. Do you think, for example, trends research and finding out what's happening in the market, is it pretty efficient to do all that online now?
uh, I talk to a lot of people my own age, obviously, and they say, "Oh God, I used to love going to Milan for the day, then Paris for the day, and then London for the day, and I could do all the shops and do my trend reports and take all my photographs and everything."
Yeah.
and buy, collezioni and do my tear sheets and things. But, you look at young people now and they're so adept at kind of research on their phones and their laptops and so on that they just see the world very differently and they are the future. So I guess it's the same. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm more a IRL person, I have to say, but we're adapting.
Do you think being a textile designer, it's important to see things in real life? I mean, so many designers just exist in a kind of virtual space, don't
Mm,
they? Can
mm.
you see a difference between the design that's thoroughly researched with heritage or, is just researched through digital resources?
I think for a designer, if you go to an exhibition or something like the Dolce Gabbana one, which was in Paris or is in Paris at the moment, you're blown away by it and you're walking around a 3D garment and you can inspect the stitching and all the embroidery and the beading embellishments and so on, which I don't know, you just sort of flick through images on a computer and you might do a screen grab or something.
Yeah.
It's not the same, unfortunately, but it's sort of speaking as a print designer, I can look at an image and I can work from it, even if it is off
Yeah.
the computer. But if you're blown away, it's kind of absorbed in your soul. So it's a
Oh,
difficult one.
you've
Yeah.
made me want to go